We're very entertaining, but we also want to be informative. So today I brought in 2 of Las Vegas' finest dentists. These ladies are the best dentists in the state of Nevada. That's why I brought them on the show. I wanted to start off asking questions, but my man Sin City wanted to lead off.
Oh, so I'm starting to see people lose teeth. Is it because of the
Sorry.
Are we missing the joke?
No, but we know niggas who teeth just be falling out, so I don't
They
know
just
if
falling out of their mouth.
Okay, let's talk about
They didn't even have like trauma. Like they're not.
No, they're in the middle of a conversation, and then they be like, yo,
It's a plastic tooth. Okay,
that's what I'm saying, literally.
Okay, so then they need to start looking at implants.
Okay.
Right? So if we're talking about their stuff is falling out.
Seriously, like.
Sorry, I don't want to laugh.
No, we don't want to have
Nah, that's okay.
No, what I'm saying is, we don't want y'all to
to
miss that we're just laughing because it's not y'all. It's a few people in mid-conversation.
Oh, God.
And they try to, so that's why
Here's the problem is that the best treatment for missing teeth is implants. Unfortunately, a lot of people cannot afford.
They're expensive. How's everybody doing today, man?
Yeah, man. How did we get here, man?
It started with a laugh, but underneath that laughter was something deeper. When Mase and Cam'ron invited 2 Las Vegas dentists onto their show, nobody expected it to turn into one of the most viral and petty conversations about Dame Dash's missing teeth. At first, it seemed like light-hearted comedy, but the timing was too perfect to ignore. Dame had just been online talking about lawsuits, betrayals, and people tearing down their brothers. Then suddenly, Mase and Cam were joking about people's teeth just falling out mid-conversation. To most viewers, it sounded like random barbershop humor. But if you knew the backstory, if you'd seen Dame's recent live streams, you knew exactly who they were talking about. This wasn't just dental talk, this was a lyrical roast in disguise. And the craziest part? It didn't even sound angry, it sounded effortless, like 2 Harlem legends casually clowning an old friend who went too far. But here's the real tension. How did a brotherhood that built an empire like the Diplomats and Rockefeller crumble to the point where missing teeth became the punchline? That's the story nobody expected to unfold.
Just falling out of their mouth.
Okay, let's talk about
They didn't even have like trauma. Like they're not.
No, they're in the middle of a conversation, and then they be like, yo,
It's a plastic tooth. Okay,
that's what I'm saying, literally.
Okay, so then they need to start looking at implants.
Okay.
Right? So if we're talking about their stuff is falling out.
Seriously, like.
Sorry, I don't want to laugh.
No, we don't want to have
Nah, that's okay.
No, what I'm saying is, we don't want y'all to miss that we're just laughing because it's not y'all. It's a few people in mid-conversation.
Oh, God.
And they try to, so that's why
Here's the problem is that the best treatment for missing teeth is implants. Unfortunately, a lot of people cannot afford.
They're expensive. How's everybody doing today, man?
Yeah, man. How did we get here, man? That's all. Some days I just wake up wondering, how did we get here? That's all I want to ask. How did we get here, man? It's just, I had no idea.
I don't know how to deal with these things because I'm used to violence. I'm used to dealing with things a different way. I'm not used to going to court, but now I am. So that shit. I'm not beefing with y'all. I'm putting a hit on you. And that is a lawsuit.
My problems is did the lawn man come to cut the grass? Is the pool clean? You know, I don't have these kind of.
The way they described it was wild. Teeth just falling out mid-conversation. That line hit the internet like a grenade. Everyone watching caught the subliminal immediately. Cam and Mase didn't drop names, but they didn't have to. The imagery said it all. Teeth falling out, random plastic pieces dropping mid-sentence. It was too specific to be coincidence. Behind the laughter, there was an unspoken tension. These weren't comedians trying to trend. These were Harlem veterans who felt betrayed. And this was how they chose to fire back, through calm humiliation masked as humor. That's what made it sting more than a diss track, because when the people who built you start laughing at your downfall, it hits different. You could almost hear the years of history between the lines, the studio sessions, the boardroom meetings, the Rockefeller dreams that turned into court cases and podcasts, and the audience. They knew. The silence after the punchline was louder than any beat drop, but this was only the setup. The real roast hadn't even begun yet.
Problems, man. My life is easy, man. Beautiful wife, beautiful life, great kids, man. They can have it, man. I'm bowing out.
Cam, stop tearing down your brothers, bro.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
Oh, shit, man.
I'm
buying. Now, to be honest with you, Murder, the thing about it is that you don't know is that you win it too. You just don't pay it no mind. You ain't get caught up about it. They bring you
in
up
it too.
You in it.
Don't tear me down. Don't tear Mase down. And you know what I'm talking about.
They bring you up about twice a month, you just don't hear it. You just ain't paying it no mind. You too high for that.
Now, here's where it got subtle and brutal. The dentists tried to hold back their laughter, but even they couldn't keep it professional. We're not laughing at you. We're laughing because it's not you. That single line captured the entire energy of the roast, disguised as conversation, dressed up as health awareness. It was all jokes, until you realized the shade had layers. This wasn't about teeth anymore. It was about pride, about how far Dame Dash had fallen from the self-proclaimed boss of Rockefeller to the punchline of a podcast episode. The irony was thick. Here was the man who used to lecture the culture about ownership, independence, and respect. And now, the same voices who once echoed his vision were laughing about implants and infections. That's Harlem energy, direct but wrapped in sarcasm. They don't tell you fell off. They joke about it until you realize it yourself. And what's crazy, they didn't need to mention Dame's name once. The streets did the rest. But this light banter would soon turn personal. And that's when the tension shifted from funny to real.
You too high for them voice to reach you, but you definitely in it.
I need you to stop doing that, man. I need you to stop beefing with everybody black. Go with somebody white.
Killer, what's
Murder,
good,
what's good,
man?
bro? How you doing, man?
Chilling, man. There's a lot going on, man.
What's going on now?
I don't know.
I gotta stop, B. I'm not doing all this corny shit no more. I'm done with it. I'm gonna just sue you. I'm not gonna look like a clown no more. Because I gotta defend myself in the algorithm. If you say something about me that's not right, I'm putting a hit on you. I don't want to walk in the courtroom, but I guess I had no choice, and I'll do it.
So if he's the chairman of Revolt, or if he thinks he's the chairman of Revolt, I just think he's a man sitting in the chair. You see, at the end of the day, if you think if you how the chairman, you the chairman, and everybody in the building got more money than you, so you just want the title boss. The janitor, the secretaries, everybody in the cubicles, programming, marketing. What you want? You want to ask them for lunch money? You are the brokest boss ever. But you're not even the boss. But I'm just saying, how you the boss and you can't get to work? You ain't got no money to get to work. Congratulations. Dame's problem.
That one question, how did we get here, hit harder than any punchline. You could almost hear the disbelief in Cam's voice. This wasn't just mockery anymore. It was disappointment. Because when you strip away the jokes, the dental metaphors, and the studio laughter, what's left is the reality of a friendship that completely unraveled in public. Cam'ron and Dame Dash weren't just industry associates, they built history together. From Rockefeller's rise to the Dipset movement, they once moved like family. So hearing Cam reflect like that, almost lost in thought, showed this wasn't all fun and games. Some days I wake up wondering, how did we get here? That's not a question. That's regret. It's a man realizing time and ego turned loyalty into internet theater. And for Mase, sitting beside him, it must have hit differently, because he too had lived through that same Harlem cycle, brotherhood, betrayal, and public breakdowns. The moment was masked as comedy, but if you listened closely, it sounded more like pain, And just when things seemed like they might calm down, Dame Dash jumped back in, not with humility, but with another round of pride and courtroom threats.
For the last 15 years is that he wants to be the talent because he feels the talent that he got over the years doesn't look out for him. So now he's like, I'm the talent. I'm Billy Pablo. I'm the rock and roll star. Now I got my own show, this, that, and the third, this, that, and the third. And to be honest with you, Dame's talent is finding talent, not being the talent. That's his talent. Not being the talent, finding the talent. So that's why I be looking at it and they be like, yo, shit is viral, shit is viral. Viral is not always a good thing. Just being viral for being a goofy, we'll just be laughing at you, nigga. Don't compare the word viral with cool. That's two totally different things. So as far as him being the chairman, I don't give a fuck.
How do you feel right now? Is this the point of no return?
That was it. The jab that turned the room cold. Some people are missing more than teeth. They're missing loyalty. You could feel the mood shift instantly. Cam didn't raise his voice, but that line hit like a sledgehammer. Everyone knew who he was talking about. It wasn't a random insult. It was a direct hit at Dame Dash, the man who had once bragged about being the glue that held Rockefeller together. Now, those same words had come back to haunt him, because no matter how much money you make, no matter how many motivational rants you post online, you can't buy back the people who stop trusting you. The loyalty line wasn't just clever, it was surgical. It cut through years of tension, rumors, and public shade between them. It was Cam's way of saying, you were the problem all along. And the way Mase looked down, trying not to laugh, told the whole story. That's Harlem. They don't scream, they stab with silence and smirks. It wasn't just about business anymore. It was personal, spiritual, and decades deep. Because when a man who helped you rise now jokes about your downfall on camera, that's not comedy, that's closure. And this was only halfway through the storm. What came next made even their fans say, oh, they really mean this.
I'm not asking for right now, I'm asking for what you think about later.
Nah, I'm at the point of no return. I'm at that point because this was totally unnecessary. For me, it was totally unnecessary. The way it went about, for me, it didn't have to be public. It didn't have to be all this. I hate repeating how this started. I didn't pick the phone up. All I did was not pick the phone up, and you keep going on the internet looking for internet sympathy.
As I've always said, I don't trust dudes. In the Bible, the closest person to Jesus killed them. And it always happens that your best friend is the one that the person you giving the most to hates you the most for some reason.
There's two things I'm sorry I did for Dame. Set up his Instagram, which he probably would have caught on later in life, and have him start smoking weed. Since he started smoking weed, he's not the same person.
I thought Biggie did that.
Yeah.
I thought he was smoking with Biggie.
Whatever, I smoke a lot, so it wasn't no big deal to me. But I'm a functional. I've been smoking since I was 16, longer than that, 15, 16, playing basketball, doing everything else. It don't affect me the same way I see it affects him, to where he needs it. Like,
you just said there's no point of return, so there's really no need of me asking you. You felt you did nothing wrong in this whole situation, right?
Absolutely not, because it isn't like me and Dame haven't had disputes before. We've had disputes, but nobody ever knew that.
That line right there. Decay starts from the inside. Might be one of the coldest metaphors ever dropped in a so-called joke. Cam wasn't talking about teeth anymore. He was talking about Rockefeller, about what happens when the foundation cracks behind closed doors, when trust erodes slowly until there's nothing left but resentment and reputation. It was poetic and painful all at once, because that's exactly how Dame's empire collapsed, not from outside attacks, but from within. His relationships decayed the same way he described the mouth, piece by piece, until it fell apart. Mase didn't even have to add a word. The way he nodded said everything. He'd seen the same kind of rot in the industry. Everyone wants to look solid on the surface, but inside, it's infection and ego. That's what makes this clip so powerful. They were teaching a lesson while throwing shade, a masterclass in Harlem storytelling, the kind that reminds you, once loyalty fades, everything that looked strong starts to crumble quietly, until the whole thing collapses. And just when viewers thought the message had sunk in, they turned the conversation again, this time straight toward Dame's obsession with credit and legacy.
Nobody ever knew that. When me and Dame, not saying our relationship been perfect from beginning to end, when we got problems, you never heard no problems from me, because all I did was just not pick the phone up. I didn't run to the internet. But he kept going on and on and on. And then on top of that, all I said was, I don't like the movie. I don't like it. Then this whole avalanche came of trying to defame my character, trying to diss me, everything else. It would have been cool for me if he would have been like, nigga, all your movies is whack. Some of the shit he said, you ain't have no hit record since you stopped with me, which is not true.
So I have to address it. You gave an opinion on my art, I'm gonna give an opinion on yours. Since Rockefeller, I haven't seen you make a hit record. And to the extent that you're no longer, rapping. So I always wondered about that. I'd be like, I don't understand why you're not putting out these records like you used to.
You know what, this shit got personal for me? Is when he was like, Cam ain't confrontational, this, that, third.
Because I think that thing had happened in front of my cousin where, homeboy punched you in your face and you never had that conversation with me. I had to hear about it through my cousin because you're very non-confrontational. I believe that Sen, who's next to
That statement cut deep because anyone who's followed Dame Dash over the years knows exactly what they meant. For decades, Dame's been the loudest voice in every room, reminding everyone how he built Rockefeller, how he discovered Kanye, how he made Jay-Z a billionaire blueprint. And while all that might be true, it's the constant reminder that turned people off. Cam and Mase were calling out that insecurity, the need to be remembered. They were saying, if your legacy's real, you don't have to yell about it. Because the real ones, their names echo without effort. Their work speaks for them long after they've stopped talking. And that's where the real tension lies. Dame believes history erased him, that the industry blackballed him. But to Cam and Mase, he erased himself the moment he started arguing with ghosts instead of building new ones. It's not hate, it's perspective, Harlem perspective, the kind that values cool over chaos, silence over self-promotion. And when Cam dropped that line, you could feel it. The air shifted. They weren't mocking Dame anymore. They were diagnosing him. That's what makes this beef so fascinating. It's not about money, credit, or fame anymore. It's about legacy. And who controls the narrative of hip-hop history. And as the laughter faded, one question lingered. Who's really remembered when the shouting stops?
you. Everyone, all your friends, and we all know that you've always been very sensitive and that you are very overreactive. So it's hard to tell you the hard truth. But the truth, Cam, is I just feel like, you've been overreacting.
So-and-so punched him in his face. I'm like, damn, you too? That's what you want? Niggas bring up all this shit with me. Niggas talk about my victories. They talk about 2-3 L's I took in my life. And I don't got no problem with that. That's cool. It come with the game. I'm straight with that. Because it's a bunch of ass whippings I done gave out on several different occasions. I don't got no problem with that. But for it to come from Dame, you got some deep hate pause inside that you've been wanting to spew out. And when he said that, I knew it was personal. And that's when I said, all right, let's do personal.
And again, back.
That was the moment the tone shifted completely. The laughter was gone. The jokes turned to quiet truth. Mase said what a lot of people have whispered for years. Dame Dash can't separate respect from rivalry. Whenever someone from his circle succeeds, he sees it as a personal threat. Cam's eyes said it all. They'd been through it, the calls, the interviews, the moments where giving Dame credit somehow turned into an argument. The man can't just take, you did your thing. He needs, you were the only one who did your thing. And that's where the heartbreak really sits. Because at one point, these were brothers. Harlem built them all. The same blocks, same dreams, same grind. But somewhere between the success and the silence, the bond got poisoned. Now it's just distance. And conversations like this one, wrapped in humor but soaked in truth. You could almost hear years of frustration behind that calm delivery. No shouting, no cursing, just truth delivered the Harlem way, with composure, class, and a hint of sting. And what makes it all more tragic, Dame doesn't even realize they're still giving him flowers. They're just not handing them to him the way he wants. That's the power of this clip. It wasn't about beef. It was about closure, about saying, we're done fighting ghosts. But if Dame saw it that way, that's another story entirely.
The art. So the reason why you're saying you didn't promote Honor Up.
Dame got a movie called Honor Up. He's shooting it on 125th and 12th Avenue.
What he said, it was a lie. So I'm like, why is he lying? And then I'm like, he knows Mook is in there. Pause. In the movie, Smoke Dizza, my OG Daniel, Black, my whole crew. So you trying to diss my whole crew and make what they did whack, but everybody else says it's good. It was in the New York Times. Kanye gave the illest premiere and everyone said it was, everyone has said that. Why would you say that?
So when your teeth or dentures is like infected, it could cause something like with the brain.
Yeah.
Yes, oral infections like the bacteria that can travel throughout your mouth, and like chronic inflammation. I mean, like that is the root cause of all disease.
You know what? That explains a lot. That explains a lot. Niggas could lose their mind, basically.
It's progressive, and they're, you know.
That line hit like a confession. You could tell it wasn't anger. It was disappointment. Cam and Mase weren't clowning Dame anymore. They were mourning what could have been. They'd seen it happen before. The loud ones, the leaders, the visionaries who couldn't adapt when the world changed around them. Harlem moves fast. Hip-hop moves faster. And if you don't evolve, you get left behind while still shouting about what you built. That's the tragedy. Dame Dash once represented everything that was bold about the culture. Independence, ownership, no middlemen. But somewhere down the line, that energy turned bitter. What used to sound like leadership started sounding like resentment. Cam's voice cracked a little when he said, "We wanted to see him grow with us." Because that's the truth about loyalty. It's not about staying the same. It's about growing together. But in this case, Dame stayed locked in an era where he was the king, and the world kept spinning without him. It's almost poetic. The man who taught artists to think like bosses ended up standing alone, preaching to an empty room. And yet, the respect never died. You can hear it in the way they talk. Not hate, just fatigue. The kind that comes when you've already tried to fix something too many times. But just when it felt like the conversation was softening, Mase took it somewhere unexpected. Straight into Dame's biggest fear, irrelevance.
Hey!
Yeah, you're mine.
Honestly,
I start bugging out.
Yeah.
Get out of here, man. Sucker.
So people will have like a perfect smile, but don't realize the bone underneath of it is actually deteriorating.
That's why you're talking to someone mid-conversation. It could just come out like,
You want a bastard for what color
Yeah. Yeah. How, like, what's the time limit, or how many days you think somebody has to go without brushing their teeth till they start losing shit?
What?
Being that y'all in y'all field or whatever, I know y'all not supposed to judge or anything. Like you say, you got family members, they got dentures, but do y'all look at that as like the broken teeth as far as dentures, and the veneers is like a class up?
I feel like everybody should experience being broke, because you realize so much more. Like
in the Bible, the closest person to Jesus killed them. It always happens.
When you gotta talk like this because you don't want your dentures to fall out, like you biting down.
I just feel like there's some things I need to say today.
Son, do you have dentures?
No.
Oh, okay.
No. I just know a lot of people that do.
Oh, okay.
And, you know.
I'm gonna be totally honest with you. The questions he's asking is stuff that we have witnessed.
There it was, the emotional center of the whole story. Mase wasn't mocking Dame. He was diagnosing the wound. That fear of being forgotten is something that eats away at a lot of legends. You build something huge, something historic, but then time moves on. The lights dim, the phone stops ringing, and suddenly you're fighting ghosts for recognition. For Dame, silence feels like defeat. He can't let the narrative breathe on its own. Every interview becomes a battlefield where he has to remind the world that he was first, that he was right, that he built it all. But that's the paradox of legacy. The louder you scream about it, the faster it fades. Because real power doesn't need an echo. It just exists. Mase's tone was calm but sharp, like a surgeon. You could tell he'd seen it before: artists, moguls, even preachers who couldn't let go of their prime. They start believing they're being erased, when in reality, the world just moved to a new chapter. And here's the irony. By trying so hard to preserve his name, Dame's actually rewriting it in a different light. People don't remember the visionary anymore. They remember the interviews, the rants, the fights that didn't need to happen. That's what makes this moment haunting. Because behind all the ego and defiance, there's a man who just doesn't want to be forgotten by the empire he built. And when Cam heard that line, he thinks silence means they won. He just nodded, like someone who's finally made peace with walking away. But they weren't done yet. Because the next part, it wasn't about Dame's fear, It was about how that fear infected everyone around him.
In the last few months, so his questions are really all legit, like the stuff that we've been watching.
No, that's good.
Yeah.
I have things that I want to say, and I think I want to talk clearly, so I'm not going to sit here and grit my teeth all day.
It doesn't fit, and it's moving around when they're talking and chewing, so they have to stay closed.
I don't care. Call that.
I wanted to share something I thought that the viewers might really be, if you have a male audience, like gum disease, oral infections actually associated with erectile dysfunction.
Wow.
That's my hitter. The little lesbian.
All right, ladies, thank you so much. This was very informative, very educational.
Thank you. Well,
I didn't know that when your teeth ain't right, that you start losing your mind. You know, yeah, made a lot of sense. Yeah, man.
Yo,
My bad. Sorry.
I used to run up in offices and fight. I could have just sued them. And that's what I should have did. But lawyers make it seem like it's so laborious and so expensive. And you don't want to walk in a building full of cops. You just don't.
That line peeled back the curtain completely. Cam was painting a picture of the final days of Rockefeller, not the glamorous part, not the success or the champagne, but the tension that built behind the cameras. You could almost hear it, the silence before every meeting, the weight of unspoken resentment in the air. What once felt like family had turned into a scoreboard. Every idea, every record, every move suddenly came with a question: who gets the glory? That's how empires collapse, not with betrayal, but with ego disguised as ambition. Dame was obsessed with control. Jay was obsessed with legacy. Kanye was obsessed with freedom. And when those three energies collided, it was only a matter of time before the walls cracked. Cam had seen it all up close. He was around when Harlem and Brooklyn were both fighting for the same throne, and he knew the moment you start counting credit, you stop making history. That's what he meant by, you could feel it in the room. It wasn't about music anymore. It was about positioning. The brotherhood that built one of hip-hop's greatest dynasties was quietly rotting from the inside. And what's wild, nobody noticed it in real time, because on the outside, it looked like success, but inside, the soul was gone. That's why this conversation hits so hard years later. It's not just about Dame Dash. It's a warning about what happens when pride overshadows purpose. But Cam wasn't done unpacking that history. He was about to explain the moment he knew it was over, when loyalty finally turned into survival.
Don't want to walk in the courtroom, but I guess I had no choice, so I'll do it.
This $300 million lawsuit, did he try to shake you down for like a mil or two? Like that was for real?
Yeah, so
$1 million?
Yeah, so he put up the lawsuit online, and then I sent it to my lawyer. I'm like, just in case, I don't care, because it was a digital paper trail, and I was like, whatever, I'm not tripping on the lawsuit. If I got to go to court and countersue, that's what I do. I don't want to do that. So Daniel was like, I ain't even want to tell you this. Dame said if you just give him $1 million, he'll forget about the whole thing. And I was like, no, I'm not giving $1 million to make what go away? A snap battle? But then 2 days later or a day later after that, that's when I seen his post saying, let's all work together, let's be cool, yada, yada.
What we doing? Beefing? Let's bring it back together. Let's all get money. Put everything to the side, man. Nobody got killed.
2 days before that, he did say, give him $1 million and then it could all go away. This whole started with Dame and 50. Dame is beefing with 50 Cent on the internet. I bump into 50 Cent. 50 Cent sees me and be like, Killer, what's up? Getting some money, you know.
That sentence right there, when we stopped talking like brothers and started talking like businessmen, was the obituary for Rockefeller Records. Because that's how every great movement dies, not from the outside, but from the moment love turns transactional. Cam wasn't describing a meeting. He was describing a funeral, the brotherhood, the Harlem and Brooklyn connection, the unspoken trust that made the dynasty what it was, gone, replaced by paperwork, lawyers, and quiet resentment. You could feel the pain in his delivery. He wasn't bragging about survival. He was mourning a bond that never healed. These were men who once starved together, dreamed together, then slowly watched greed and pride turn everything into a business negotiation. When Cam said cold stares, that was deeper than words. That was the day family became competitors. The laughter was gone. Every win felt like a loss. It's a brutal cycle in hip-hop. Loyalty gets tested the higher you climb, and once you start counting percentages instead of memories, there's no going back. That's why this clip hits harder than any diss track, because it's not just about music. It's about brotherhood, betrayal, and the cost of ambition. And as the interview moved forward, they started connecting that moment, the death of Rockefeller, to how Dame still operates today, like a man stuck reliving the same argument that ended everything. But the next part? That's where things took a darker turn, when they stopped talking about history and started exposing behavior. They stopped talking about history and started exposing behavior. That's when everything changed, because once the inside jokes turn into public shade, it's no longer about the music, it's about power. You can hear it in their tone, the disappointment, the fatigue, the unspoken question of how did we get here. It wasn't just Mase and Cam'ron speaking on another man. It was hip-hop holding up a mirror, a reflection of what happens when brotherhood collides with business and the lines between partnership and pride start to blur. At first, it was funny. Jokes about teeth, lawsuits, and industry hits that turned from metaphors into memes. The internet laughed, clips went viral, reactions flooded timelines, and everyone picked a side. But underneath the laughter was something heavier, something that sounded like grief disguised as comedy. Because deep down, these weren't just random celebrities talking about another celebrity. These were brothers who had shared the same stages, the same hunger, the same Harlem air, and now they were analyzing each other like case studies in a podcast chair. That's the cruel beauty of this era, when real pain becomes content. When the story isn't about who's right or wrong, it's about who gets the last laugh. And in that moment, the laughs came easy. But the truth? The truth was buried under layers of sarcasm. What they were really saying, without saying it, was that ego is undefeated. Once pride gets involved, there's no mediator strong enough to fix it, because the real problem wasn't money, it wasn't fame, it was identity. For Dame, being the boss wasn't just a title, it was a lifeline. It's how he defined himself when the music stopped, when the lights dimmed, when the empire faded. He wasn't chasing credit, he was chasing relevance. And that's something every mogul faces when their creation outgrows them. You build the castle brick by brick. Then one day, you're standing outside the gate. Cam saw it. Mase saw it. They all did. But instead of an intervention, it became entertainment. That's what this new era does. It turns therapy into talk shows. Pain becomes podcast material. Confessions turn into content. And before you know it, vulnerability has a production schedule. But somewhere in between the laughter and the shade, there was still love. Faded, bruised, unspoken, but love. You could hear it in the hesitation between their sentences, the moments where they laughed too hard to hide how much it actually hurt. Because no matter how much you clown a man publicly, there's still a piece of you that remembers him when things were pure, when success was simple, when it was just about the art, the energy, the dream. And that's the tragedy of hip-hop loyalty. The same brother you built your name with can become the villain in your story, not because he changed, but because time did. Every generation of rap has its version of this story. It's the same script with different faces, Big and Puff, Jay and Dame, 50 and Game, Cam and Jim. Somewhere down the line, the music stops being a bridge and starts being a battlefield. And when the smoke clears, nobody really wins. Because once the internet gets involved, reconciliation feels impossible. Every clip is a timestamp, every headline a scar. You can't call and make peace when your argument already has 1 million views. That's what makes this whole saga so human. It's not about villains and heroes. It's about people trying to hold on to respect in an industry built on perception. Dame wasn't the first to get clowned online, and he won't be the last. But what makes his story sting is how familiar it feels. The fall of every empire always begins with the same words. He changed. But the truth is, everybody changes. Fame just accelerates it. Mase and Cam were never trying to destroy a legacy. They were processing one, laughing through the pain, turning old wounds into punchlines because that's what survivors do. They joke about the trauma they never got to heal from. And if you listen closely, you can hear the nostalgia buried in the laughter. It's the sound of Harlem remembering what used to be, the energy, the brotherhood, the pride, all of it gone, replaced by interviews, clickbait titles, and viral moments. And still, somehow, you can't blame them. This is the new currency. Relevance, views, attention. The same way records used to go platinum, now moments go viral. It's survival by exposure. And for artists who once moved the culture, the internet became both the cure and the curse. Because when you can't make peace privately, the algorithm becomes your therapist, and your fans become the jury. So now, what used to be a phone call is a segment. What used to be a conversation is a headline. And what used to be brotherhood is now content. That's the cost of transparency in the digital age. Every truth comes with a price, and the receipt lives forever online. But beyond the drama, there's something poetic about it. Watching legends who once ruled the streets now rule timelines. Watching men who built empires learn how to navigate the new one, the empire of attention. And even when they roast, even when they laugh, even when they talk slick, there's still something deeper happening underneath. They're teaching us that no matter how big you get, ego will always be the most expensive thing you own. Because ego doesn't pay rent. Ego doesn't buy peace. Ego doesn't rebuild bridges. It just reminds you of what you lost while trying to win. And maybe that's what Mase and Cam were really saying without spelling it out. That sometimes the only way to make peace with the past is to talk about it out loud, even if the world laughs while you do it. Because healing doesn't always look graceful. Sometimes it looks like jokes about teeth, lawsuits, and betrayal. But underneath it all, it's still healing. Maybe the lesson isn't about who's right or wrong. Maybe it's about what fame does to friendship. The higher you climb, the thinner the air gets. And if you don't learn how to breathe differently, you'll suffocate trying to protect your pride. At the end of the day, nobody wants to be the one who lost everything over ego. But pride never knocks before it enters. It just takes over, and by the time you notice, the damage is already done. The funny thing is, hip-hop doesn't forget. It archives everything, every feud, every quote, every clip. Generations from now, people will still dissect this story, not because of who was right, but because of what it revealed about us. It showed us that behind the bravado, behind the money, behind the mogul titles and flashy interviews, there are still men trying to figure out how to stay human in a world that monetizes their mistakes. And that's what makes this story timeless. It's not just Harlem business, it's human nature, a cycle that keeps repeating itself in every industry, every friendship, every circle where loyalty and ambition share the same room. Because the truth is, success doesn't change people. It just reveals who they were trying to hide. And in that sense, maybe this whole thing was never about revenge or clout. Maybe it was just the long overdue conversation that should have happened years ago, finally being said out loud, in public, in front of everyone, unfiltered, uncomfortable, honest. And that's why people can't look away. Because it's not just gossip. It's the anatomy of a friendship falling apart in real time. And when you strip away the celebrity, the money, and the titles, what you're left with is something painfully relatable. The moment you realize the person you built everything with might not be standing with you anymore. That's the part that hurts the most. Not the insults, not the jokes, but the silence that comes after. The distance. The understanding that some chapters won't ever close cleanly. They just fade into the next one. And that's where this story leaves us, in that uneasy silence between comedy and tragedy, the kind that only hip-hop can turn into art. Because even in chaos, there's rhythm, even in beef, there's beauty, even in loss, there's legacy. And that's the paradox of it all. You laugh, you argue, you go viral, but at the end of the day, the same city that raised you will always remember who you were before the cameras turned on. And maybe that's the point. In the end, it's not about who roasted who. It's about who learned something after the fire died down. And don't go anywhere. Click the next video you see on your screen for even more juicy celebrity chaos, betrayals, and stories Hollywood doesn't want you to know. See you in the next one.